Good morning and happy Flex Learning Day in a week. Geez, we had one last Wednesday and now one this Wednesday. So today the plan was to do the review, and usually we do those in class and we don't do any instruction on those while you're doing the review, but I think just a refresher would help. So if you follow along with this is your actual review that you're going to be doing. So if you do these with me, you'll get a couple of these done ahead of time. Okay, so the first one we're going to start with number 1 here. And you have to find your A, your B, and your C. Remember, your A comes with your squared value. So my A is going to be that 1 because there's no number in front. My B comes with my X value, so that's a 6. And my C never has a letter on it, so that one's going to be a 9. Okay, we determine if it opens up or opens down by your A value. If it's positive, it opens up. That means it's going to come up like this. Okay, if that was a negative number, it would open down. Your axis of symmetry, remember we use this x equals opposite b divided by 2 times a. And that's going to find our axis of symmetry. So our x equals, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there, equals, okay, my b right now is a 6. So the opposite is a negative 6. The 2 stays there, and my a is a 1. So really I have a negative 6 divided by 2. And that's going to give me a negative 3. So my negative 3 is my axis of symmetry. That's that kind of middle line that's going to go down. And then I have my 2 numbers. One's an x and one's a y. I just found that x, so I'm going to put that negative 3 right there. Okay, now I'm going to take that negative 3 and I'm going to stick it 2 places. I'm going to put it right here where this x is and right here where that x is. And that's going to give me my y. I'm going to put that down here. Y equals, and anytime you have an x, you have to have parentheses around it. So really, technically, there's a 1 in front of that x, so I'm going to stick that 1 in there. And then my negative 3 goes inside, squared plus 6. Put that negative 3 back in there, plus 9. Okay, and then you're just going to use your calculator and type all that in exactly like it is. So it has to have the parentheses around it. I'm putting mine in right now. Squared and I get 0. Okay, so my y value is a 0. So I can stick that in right now. So y equals 0. Okay, and then if you remember the last one, your y-intercept is easy to find. It's always this last number right there. So my y-intercept is going to be that 9. Okay, now we have to decide if it's a maximum or a minimum. Well, we look to see where it's pointing. Okay, so is that bottom, that vertex, is that pointing down or is it pointing up? Well, it's pointing down, so it's going to be a minimum because it's pointing down. It's at the lowest point. Okay, now we're just going to go ahead and put those on the graph on the right. So remember yesterday we put that negative 3 right in the middle, and then we did 2 below and 2 above. And you can go in any order, okay? I could have had my negative 5 and negative 4 upper and my negative 1 and negative 2 below. It does not matter. This 0 is going to go here, and then you're just going to use your calculator and change it to, don't retype the whole thing in there, just change your numbers that you need to change. So when I put my negative 2 in there, now I get a 1. Remember that these two go together. So if that's a 1, this is a 1. And then I'm going to change that negative 2 that I just put in there to a negative 1. And this is a 4. So if this is a 4, then this one's going to be a 4. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and graph it. So remember, you always go left and right first, then up and down. So I'm going to go left to negative 1 and go up to 4, and then stick a dot. I'm going to go left to negative 2 and up to 1. Whoops. That's right. Okay, negative 3 and 0. So I'm at negative 3 and I'm not going anywhere. And then negative 4 and 1. And negative 5 and 4. And then that's going to make that U shape that we talked about. And it's pointing down, so it's a minimum. And it makes the U, just like I thought, it's going to open up at the top, just like my positive A value would say. Okay, so that's just a little review of number 1. We're going to do the same thing, and I'm going to walk you through number 2. So move on to number 2 with me, and we're going to say A equals, B equals, C equals. So my A is going to be, because of that negative out front, it's a -1. My B is going to be a -2, and my C is a -3. So they're all negative numbers. Remember, we always start with x equals opposite B divided by 2 times A. Okay, so right now my B is a -2, so it's going to be a +2. And my 2 down here stays the same, times my A value, which is a -1. Okay, so I have 2 divided by -2. And that's going to give me a -1. So my middle number is going to be a -1. And then I'm going to go above. So -2, -3, and 0, and 1. Okay, so now to find that other side, remember we're going to go ahead and put just that -1 in. We're going to start there, and we're going to put that -1 right here, and we're going to put it right there. Okay, so I'm going to start with y equals, because I have that negative outside of my x, that's a -1. So I'm going to stick that out first, then put the other -1 in there, square it, -2, -1, -3. I'm going to throw that all in my calculator. So -1 parenthesis, -1 squared, -2 parenthesis, -1, close your parenthesis, -3. Now I get a -2. So a -2 goes right there because we put that -1 in. Now I'm just going to use my calculator and use those arrows buttons. I'm going to scroll up. Because it's a negative, I'm going to go ahead and put that -2 in there because it was already negative. My negative is already set up in there, so I'm going to use that 2. And I get a -3 right here, which means this one is also a -3. And then I'm going to make this a -3. So my -2 is now a -3 because I'm choosing that one on top, my x on top, and I get a -6 here, which means that this one is a -6. Now I'm just going to go ahead and plot those. Okay, so I'm going to start -3, so I'm going to go left, -3, and then down to -6. So -3, -6 is right here. -2, -3, -1, -2, 0, -3, so I'm not going anywhere on that 0. I'm just going to go down to 3. And then my last one is 1, -6. Okay, and this is making this shape right here. Okay, that is pointing up, so it's going to be a maximum. Okay, notice that this other one you had minimum written first, but down here you have maximum written first, so just be careful on those. Okay, you're going to do the same with number 3. You're going to find A equals, B equals, and C equals. My A is going to be a 1. My B is going to be a 4. There's nothing there for my C, so I'm just going to leave that as a 0. My C is a 0, which you don't really need, so that's okay too. Okay, I'm going to leave you alone to do that one, so you are on your own with number 3. Just remember, you start with that x equals opposite B divided by 2 times A. Okay, so let's look and see what we got here. The next one is a word problem. So let's read through this word problem, decide what we have to do, and then I'll have you do that last word problem on your own. Okay, a car dealership has modeled the monthly operating cost for car maintenance work by the function y equals 0.25x squared minus 10x plus 150, where y is the total cost in dollars and x is the number of cars worked on. So I'm going to underline that. Y is the cost in dollars, and x is the cars worked on. And we're going to use that to answer our questions, okay? Number A says, find the vertex and axis of symmetry. Well, axis of symmetry is how we always start. So x equals opposite B divided by 2 times A. Okay, so I'm going to say x. Well, let's find our A, B, and C first. Okay, so my A is 0.25. My B is a -10. And my C is 150. Okay, so x equals, we're going to say opposite B. Right now it's a -10, so it's going to be a +10. And then we're going to say 2 times my A value, which is 0.25. I'm going to close that up. Okay, so my 10 is going to stay 10 on top. And then you're just going to take your calculator and do 2 times 0.25, and you get 0.5. And then you're just going to take that 10 and divide that by your 0.5. And you get 20. And that makes sense because 0.5 is a half. And when you divide it by a half, you're going to actually double that. Okay, so I just found my axis of symmetry. That's what I found there. So now to find the vertex are those 2 points, where one of them is an x and one of them is the y. Okay, we found the x because we had x equals opposite b, right? So my 20 is going to go right here. To find that y, I'm going to go ahead and stick this right where that red is. Everywhere there's an x, instead of writing x, I'm going to fill that in with that 20 that I found. Okay, so y equals 0.25 parenthesis 20, then I'm going to square it, minus 10, put my 20 in there, plus 150. Okay, so I'm just going to put all of that in my calculator. So 0.25 parenthesis 20, close it and square it, minus 10, parenthesis, put my 20 back in there, close it, and then plus 150. And I get 50. So y equals 50. So I'm going to put my 50 right there. Okay, so I have my x and I have my y. That's what that first one's asking us to do. Finding the vertex, which this right here is the vertex, the 2 points. And then the axis of symmetry is this one right here. Okay, so now we have to answer A and B. What is the minimum cost? Well, we're going to look back where it says y is the total cost and x is the number of cars worked on. Well, if it's the total cost, I want the y. So what is the cost? The cost is going to be $50. Okay, letter C, how many cars should be worked on? Well, when you read, it says X is the number of cars worked on. So when I look back at my X is 20. So I'm going to say 20 cars. Okay, so when we look at number 5, we're going to do the same thing. You have H equals and all that, where X, so H equals negative 4.9x squared plus 2.07x, where H is the height of the table in meters and X is the time in seconds. So when you do these ones, you're going to have, instead of having an X and a Y, you're going to have an X, that's going to be your first one. And then you're going to have an H, okay? That's just like their Y, so treat that like a Y. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing. Your first step is X equals opposite B divided by 2 times A. And then you can answer those 2 questions. Okay, that's all I'm going to go over with you on this. So if you have questions, reach out and ask if you have some questions. We'll be available. Just send us a Schoology message and we'll be able to help. But otherwise, you should be good to go from here. Good luck.